So glad that you could join me again. It's the first week of March. I'm really starting to feel spring coming to Edinburgh, even though we've had quite a few days of rain and it's still dark and gloomy. I am an optimist and I want to bring spring into my home. During the start of spring, I always like to get my house ready so that when the sunshine does come out and the flowers start to emerge, I can open up the windows and everything's fresh and clean. So join me in this video where I will be getting my house ready for spring and just freshening everything up, ready for a new season. At the beginning of spring, I always like to freshen up my home after a long winter of central heating and hardly any fresh air. Doing this gives me hope and helps me to embrace the new season with a fresh start. I'm taking the covers off my sofa so I can wash them. I allow all dogs on my sofa as it's so easy to wash and looks like new once it is done. I'm adding baking soda to the washing machine as it always seems to help make my laundry even cleaner. I'm going to create a solution of dish soap, vinegar and water to clean my windows. Now that the sunlight is starting to come through, I can see how badly they need doing. I find that making my own cleaning products is not only cost efficient, but also better for me and my home as there are no chemicals. I'm using baking soda once again, this time on my carpets. Although I hoover them regularly, baking soda is great for removing any odours. You sprinkle it over the carpets and leave it to absorb any smells for a few hours before vacuuming it up later. So as part of my little spring clean, what I've decided to do is to repaint this sideboard. I got this about 4 years ago. It was a really dark red mahogany wood which I didn't like, and I painted it this green, this washed green with a white. And so it's time now to give it a bit of a spruce up. This is a walk through this area, so it's been brushed past and knocked. There's a few nicks and stuff on it. So it is time for it to be to have a bit of a makeover. And what I want to do is I'm going to paint it with the Annie Sloan Chalk Paint. So I've got the Annie Sloan Old White Chalk Paint. This is my favourite white in the Annie Sloan range because it kind of looks more like an antique white rather than a really bright white. So you're going to get a more old finish, not something that looks brand new. And then I have the Annie Sloan French Linen. So as you can see, this table has got a green wash, and then you see white pieces here as well. I want to have the same kind of look, so I'll paint the whole thing white, and then I'll use a little bit of this watered down just to brush over some of the detailing, and then you have a more multi-dimensional look to this piece. Then I've got the Annie Sloan Clear Wax. When you apply the wax, you won't really notice anything, you won't be able to see any difference. But once it's all buffed and shined, you get a really lovely finished surface that you can wipe down and that looks clean and fresh, and it also protects the piece of furniture. Lastly, I've got the Annie Sloan Bristle Brush. I've bought probably about 1,000 of these over the years. I always end up losing them, and they are expensive, so be careful when you're buying them. But they are really great brushes. The nice pointy head here means that you can get in all of the details, and it just really grabs the paint and enables you to paint it really well. So I would recommend getting the brush as well. Now with Annie Sloan paint, you don't really need to prep furniture like you would with ordinary paints. Sometimes you have to use sanding papers or spirits to clean them off. You don't need to prep the wood with Annie Sloan paint. It is designed to go on straight onto the piece of furniture. All I like to do is take a microfiber cloth and just make sure that it is free of any dust, because you don't want to have dust in the piece. But that is it. So I'm just going to quickly wipe it down, and then I'm going to start. So as you can see, this is quite thick. For a first coat, I'm going to dilute it down just a little bit. Otherwise, it will take a long time to get the whole thing covered up, and you'll be wasting a lot of the paint. You can dilute it down for the first coat, and then it will spread more evenly. It dries in about 20 minutes. And then for the second coat, not for certain, but maybe you can just use the paint as it is. So just going to add a little water, stir it. Okay, so I'm going to get started loading the brush. You can apply quite a generous amount, and then I just like to do it in nice smooth strokes, backwards and forwards. And what I do at the end is make sure that at the edges there are no drips, otherwise you'll have clumpy bits of paint. And I like to make sure that I'm swooping over so that you've got nice brush strokes, which I think add character and make the piece more interesting. So I've been painting now for about 10 minutes and I've got, as you can see, it's really well covered. It doesn't take very long. And although I said at the beginning of this section that I've watered down the paint, actually I haven't painted for a long time, and what I remembered is that with a piece like this where there's lots of little pieces like the legs which are very thin, if you use watered down paint, it's quite hard for it to grip onto the piece and it will run, so it's best to use it undiluted. So I'm just using it straight out of the tin and it's going on really well, not too thick. But if you've got a really big piece like a big bed or a wardrobe or something like that, which is just a wide one piece, it is better to dilute it down. Otherwise you're going to be taking a long time to really get across the surface and you'll waste a lot of the paint. But yeah, with little pieces like this where you've got thin legs, I would use it undiluted. So that is the first coat of paint done. It's fully covered, but I can still see, you can probably see it as well on the camera, that the little hint of green is coming through, so it will definitely need another coat. I'm going to leave this to dry for about 30 minutes. You shouldn't really need any longer than that. You can wait overnight if you want, but this paint has been designed so that you can just work quickly and that it will dry and you can paint over. Now that the second coat of white has dried, it is time to add the grey. I'm adding some of the old white to the grey to mute it down. I will take a dry rag and dip it into this paint and wipe it over the entire piece of furniture. The aim is to highlight the piece and will create a nice contrast and show all of the details on the sideboard. You can also use a small paintbrush to further add colour and correct any mistakes that you might make. sofa covers are dry now, so I'll press them before putting them back on. They smell so clean and fresh. So I've let this dry for about 3 hours after putting on the grey wash, and I can feel that it's dry. It's very chalky, so the last thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply the Annie Sloan clear wax, and this will just bring this piece of furniture to life. It will give it a beautiful smooth finish, and it will also protect the piece of furniture so that when you put plants on here, or maybe you want to put a glass, it will not leave marks. You'll be able to wipe them away. So this wax comes in this little pot. You use a clean cloth and you just put it in here and then buff over the whole thing. It takes literally 10 minutes to do the whole thing, and that will give you a finished piece. So I just start at the top and go in the direction of the paint marks, and you will see that when you do this you really start to get the detail coming out, and it really finishes everything off very nicely. Because it's clear wax, it's quite hard to see where you've applied it, but if you stand and look in the light like this, you can see that this is shiny and this is very dry and matte. So you can tell where you need to carry and continue it on. That is the top done, and now I'm going to finish off the whole thing. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that you have enjoyed this episode and it's inspired you to start getting ready for the new season ahead and a wonderful spring. See you soon, but until then, take care. Bye bye.